Let's come to the concept of novation that we discussed in the earlier part of this video. If either of the parties decide to resign the contract or alter it or substitute it with a new contract, they need not perform the original previous contract. This is the concept of novation, and the new altered or resigned contract is called a novated contract. However, novation can only take place by the consent of all the people that were parties to the previous contract. Now, what really happens when there is a breach of contract? How do you rectify such a breach of contract? What are the remedies for such breaches? There are several remedies available in situations of breach of contract. First of these remedies is rescinding a contract. Now, this happens when one of the parties fails to perform their obligations or refuses to perform their obligations altogether. Now, the other end of the party can decide to rescind the contract. In such a scenario, the party that resigns the contract is entitled to receive compensation from the party who failed to perform their obligations. For example, A enters into a contract with B, where B is liable to deliver oil or certain amount of oil to A's place. Now, B decides to not do that at all and informs A that he would not be continuing with this. Now, A entered into this contract with certain expectations. So, A decides to resign the contract. However, A is still entitled to get his payment or compensation back. As is obvious in the legal dynamics, we know that parties who suffer damages or have to bear the consequences of the breach can obviously sue the parties for damages. This is the second remedy available, that is suing for damages. Now, in the example that we just discussed, A can also go to the court and sue for damages, and then the court uses the calculations allowed under the Indian Contract Act to grant either liquidated or unliquidated damages to the party. Now, the second remedy was about suing for damages. The third remedy is about suing for specific performance of the contract. In this remedy, the party can go to the contract and demand performance of the contract. And in such a scenario, the court generally grants the relief of specific performance, whereby the party who refused to perform the obligations or failed to perform the obligations is required to perform its obligations rather than paying a damage. This happens in a lot of scenarios where performance of the contract is more valuable to the person or party than compensation. The fourth type of remedy is injunctions. Injunctions are asking another party to not do a certain act. Even in these examples, the party who is hurt and who has borne the consequences of non-performance or consequences of performance of something that is not okay, that party can go to the court and ask the court to stop the other party from doing a certain act. This is the remedy of injunction. The last available remedy is of quantum merit. This means to make good to the other party as much as earned. What happens here is that one of the parties who was made to not perform their contract will be entitled to get compensation for the share of contract performed. In the example that we had just discussed about A and B entering into a contract for delivery of oil, what if B had actually delivered oil to A? And now A asked B to not deliver the rest of the oil. So B had partly delivered the oil. In such a scenario, B was forced to not perform his share of contract. In such a scenario, B is entitled to get reimbursement from A for the amount of oil that is already delivered. Another important point to note here is that damages or compensation can only be claimed for damages that could be foreseen from a reasonable perspective or point of view. So, damages can never be claimed for consequences or damages that could not be foreseen or could not be gathered to happen from a reasonable person's point of view. In the example that we had just discussed, due to non-delivery of oil from B's end, A panics a lot because his business is ruined and decides to commit suicide. In such a scenario, A's family members will not be entitled to get damages for A committing suicide. Rather, they will only be entitled to damages for non-delivery of oil, because any reasonable person would not have foreseen A committing suicide due to non-performance of the contract. Let's come to the concept of release, waiver, accord and satisfaction. This happens when one of the parties chooses to remit or let go or dispense with the obligations on the other party's end. In such a scenario, the other party will no longer be obliged to fulfill his end of promises once this satisfaction or accord is gained from the other party. Let's look at an example. A had lent some money to B, say 10,000 rupees, and B returned 5,000 rupees with interest. Now a long time passed and B neither returned the rest of the 5,000 rupees nor returned the interest on that amount. B basically asked A that he has poor conditions and he has, say, lost his job and therefore cannot return the rest of the amount. So instead of suing for damages or carrying out any remedy for breach, A decides to let go of this obligation. So basically, A waives off his right to demand the rest of the 5,000 rupees along with interest. In such a scenario, there is accord and satisfaction between A and B is not obliged to pay back the rest of the amount of money. What happens when a contract is rescinded or it becomes void? We saw that when a party rescinds a contract, he is entitled to get compensation from the other party who decided to not perform their obligations. Now what happens when the other party performs partial obligations and the initial party says that I don't want you to perform the rest of the part of the contract? In such a scenario, the party that has fulfilled his obligations is entitled to get compensation for the same. And now what happens if a contract becomes void? When a contract becomes void due to impossibility or frustration, if either of the parties have performed any part of their obligations or fulfilled any part of the contract, they are entitled to get compensation for the same. Basically, if one of the parties has taken an advantage out of a contract that becomes void later on, that advantage must be paid for. For example, A, who is a landlord, charges a really high amount of rent from B, that is over and above the limit specified in the Rent Control Act. In such a scenario, B is entitled to get the rest of the money back, that is the money that was over and above the limit specified under law if their tenancy contract comes to an end. Now, how are damages really calculated? When a contract is breached by one of the parties, the party who has to suffer the consequences of such a breach is obviously entitled to receive damages. However, that party can only receive damages that are either naturally likely to arise from the contract or the parties knew while signing the contract that such consequences can arise in the future. So, that means the damages should either be that are naturally arising from the contract or that the parties knew are likely to arise from the contract. For example, A purchases a property from B. Now, while purchasing this property, A relied on its lawyers to estimate the value of the property. This property had a workshop in the front. However, there was very limited right of passage, that is the way to reach the property from the front end. A's lawyers told him that there is a way that you can get access from the rear or the back side of the property. However, later on, A found out that the neighbors whose place is behind their home, that is towards the rear end, are unwilling to offer or allow any right of passage, and that they have legitimate right over the passage, therefore A can no longer avail that option. In such a scenario, A relied on the promise by their solicitors or lawyers that they can get access from the rear end. Here, the damages that were likely to arise were profits from the workshop or were the expenses that were spent over the workshop and also the case that they had to fight with the neighbors for access to workshop. Due to misinformation by the lawyers, A had to suffer a lot of damage, and all this damage could be claimed in a court of law as long as it was naturally likely to arise. So in this case, the naturally occurring damage was money spent on the purchase of business and money spent on selling the business at a loss and also the interest on the loan that was taken from the bank to purchase that property. Now, the court has time and again held that damages must be calculated in a manner that they put the party in as good of a position as the party would have been had the contract been performed fully and completely. However, this goes with a caveat that the plaintiff or the person who is claiming the damage must have taken all the reasonable steps to mitigate the loss or minimize the amount of damage. If that person has taken all these steps, then that person is entitled to damages which would place him in as good of a position as he would have been had the contract been performed. There are certain specific situations that the Indian Contract Act provides. One of them is the concept of bailment. Now, how are damages calculated in bailment? In a situation where one person keeps certain goods with the other person as bailment, if the goods are damaged, the damage includes and has to ensure that the amount is paid so as to restore the value to its original price. For example, A bails his horse to B. While on bailment, the horse gets injured. Here, B is required to pay A as much of an amount as is required to make good the horse in its original position. In construction contracts, the damages include amount that is required to complete the rest of the construction. For example, A entered into a contract with B to build a property but leaves it midway. So here the damage would not be payment of the property that is already constructed, but rather the damages must include amount that would be required to complete the property, because a half-built property is of no use. In situations of sale of goods, for example, A contracts with B for delivery of certain goods from B's end. However, the clause in the contract says that in case of default by B, A is entitled to resell the goods. In such a situation, if there is a default on A's end, then B can get the value as much as would be acquired after the resale of goods within a reasonable period of time. However, if the resale does not take place within a reasonable period of time, then B is entitled to get the difference between the original price of the goods and the resale price of the goods at the time the breach occurred. Now, there is also a concept of special damages, which happens when there are special requirements of the parties. This could also depend on the place, time or mode of performance of the contract that we discussed earlier in the video. For example, A enters into a contract with B for delivery of machines. So A basically places order for delivery of sewing machines because A wanted to utilize the high possibility of sales on a festival. Now B fails to deliver these machines because he was not aware of any such festival, because A had not informed him so. Now A tried to claim the loss of profits that could have resulted from such a sale of goods. The court held that since B was not aware of such a special circumstance, A was not entitled to any such special damages. So this was all for the concept of performance and breach in the Indian Contract Act, and see you guys in the next video.